Disclaimer: the views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of USA Global TV and Radio. The content presented is for informational purposes only and is intended to foster open discussion and debate. Viewer discretion is advised. USA Global TV and Radio does not endorse any particular viewpoint and encourages viewers to seek out additional information and perspectives. Saving America with Dr. David D. Schein.
Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Welcome to Saving America. This is your host, Dr. David D. Schein, and we have a boatload of stories for you today. Trump responding to demand for lower costs for consumers. President Trump reversed course by reducing tariffs on some items like beef, coffee, and tropical fruit in response to pressure to lower the cost of living. This was blamed on the losses for the GOP on November 4. I do not personally subscribe to this opinion, but if we do not make something or do not make enough of it, then we should freely import it. Coffee is excellent. For the U.S., coffee is grown in Hawaii. It's wonderful coffee and used to be grown in Puerto Rico. Of course, everything in Hawaii is expensive. The outbound population of young people from Puerto Rico resulted in discontinuing coffee production since they didn't have the labor to raise it and harvest it. So largely, we're dependent on certain countries to export it to the U.S. Reducing those coffee tariffs makes perfect sense to me. The countries getting a break include Ecuador, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Argentina. Note that Colombia and Brazil, two countries which could help to fill the gap, were not on at least this preliminary list. This ties with my recent comment that Trump feuding with nearby allies helps no one. He should stay out of the internal battles in other countries, especially our allies. In my opinion, the biggest target has to be beef. Even at major big box operations like Costco and Sam's Club, beef is unbelievably expensive. Of course, a week earlier, Trump announced opening the beef market to imports, and the U.S. cattle operators objected. Hey, you can't win for losing. While the reduction in food prices might help, the surge caused by the Biden-Harris misadministration has also jacked up the cost of housing, medical care, and college, which is haunting many Americans. Not sure how quickly those fixes might come, if any. Democrats engage in possible insurrection against the U.S. military. A famous oxymoron is military intelligence. I remind my audience of this as I was shocked to hear that 6 Dem members of Congress, allegedly having served in the U.S. intelligence community, released commercials addressed to members of the military, current members. The commercials claim to remind the active military that they can ignore commands from their leaders that call for them to commit criminal acts. As the son of a career military man and a supporter of the U.S. military superiority, I am outraged that anyone in the U.S. would call for something like this. It shows how far into the sewer the Dems have sunk. Of course, if this had been run during the Biden-Harris administration disgrace, it might have made a teeny bit of sense. The disgraceful scum are Senator Elisa Slotkin of Michigan and Mark Kelly, Arizona, U.S. Representatives Jason Crow from Colorado, Chrissy Hulan, and Chris DeLuzio from Pennsylvania, and Maggie Goodlander of New Hampshire. I call on real Americans in these states to make sure that these anti-Americans lose the next time they're on the ballot. I believe the current push to clean up the military is the right one. The purpose of the military is to protect the United States from its enemies, foreign and domestic, and that includes drug runners, folks. I consider the referenced statements to be encouraging acts of insurrection. The vast majority of Americans want to be safe from criminals and want to see the incredible wave of death from drugs ended now. What if you gave a party and nobody came? Sometime back, I spoke about the terrible destruction of a rainforest in northeastern Brazil to build a big highway to Belém in order that that country host the 2025 annual United Nations Climate Conference. 2 years ago, 150 heads of government showed up in Dubai. This year, only 53 showed up. This vividly documents the beginning of the end of the climate hysteria that has gripped much of the world for the last decade or so. The ridiculous juggernaut was the Paris Accord of 2016, with many major countries signing off on it. The U.S. got on board under the failed Obama administration. In the U.S., it became a political football, with Trump one taking the U.S. out of it, then Biden returned to it, and then Trump too killed it again. The major problem was the basic idea behind the accord. Supposedly, the industrialized countries would both dramatically cut their carbon emissions and give money to the less developed countries to help them develop with less environmental impact. The worst part of the whole mess was allowing China to be considered one of the poor states while it competes with the United States to be the biggest economy in the world. As they say here in Texas, that dog won't hunt. Quantum computing and AI rely on huge amounts of energy, so the world is going to need to make a lot more of it just to keep rolling into the future, not less. Windmills and solar farms are not going to be able to keep up. Nuclear power is the long-term best bet. Even long-term climate alarmist Bill Gates has come out recently to indicate that the sky is not falling. And quick to me that we stop real pollution around the world. But a lot of this climate alarmism does not address basic pollution issues. Watch for a potential problem with reward credit cards. Just as cash is disappearing and the use of credit cards is surging, now we have something else to worry about. Most consumers know that merchants and other sellers pay a fee to credit card companies as a percentage of your purchases. Turns out the so-called reward cards charge the merchants more. My family uses some of them, in fact. In the push to reduce credit card fees, there is now a concern that the merchants might begin to refuse to allow customers to use those reward cards. The starting point was ironically supposed to help consumers. That is, a couple decades of retailers accusing MasterCard and Visa specifically of colluding to keep the credit card fees higher than they need to be. So the proposed deal to end the litigation would lower the fees for the next 5 years. This runs against the long-standing honor all cards rule. In fact, as a longtime user of Discover, in the last year or two, seems that all domestic retailers now take that card as well. Not sure how that card provider will be impacted. I know many stores, for instance, do not take American Express, so this could result in a parallel situation for some Visa and MasterCard reward cards. We shall see if the court approves it and how it works in the real world. Saks off. The discount version of Saks Fifth Avenue will start closing 9 of its Rutherford stores across the U.S. beginning in 2026. Instead of trying to be everywhere, they're going to target higher performing retail markets. The locations mentioned include some major markets, which caught my attention. So might be more going on here than just picking better markets. The East Side Manhattan store is closing soon, for instance. Their online business will continue to be emphasized, however. So it may be, even if the volume is there, if the overhead is high, they will rely on the online market to cover those high overhead areas. So we'll see. Maybe the story is not quite exactly the way it's being presented. DEI is not dead yet at Cal State campuses. As Americans flee from DEI across the country, there are still some slow learners, if you'll pardon the pun. The Cal State University system is still requiring DEI-type nonsense despite the national trend. In fact, a number of sensible states have banned their state universities from having anything to do with DEI in its training companion, CRT. And so it takes some doing to root it out. Smart governors and legislatures are doing some investigations to make sure their schools are cleaning house. So Cal State campuses are requiring students to waste time and money on at least one DEI or CRT type course. We're talking about courses on things like race, sexuality, and climate change. The names of some of the courses that meet these requirements are just hideously stupid. Fine-tuning Trump's $2,000 rebate. As I've said on prior Saving American Unscripted Politics episodes, the U.S. is up to its eyeballs in debt. If the tariffs continue and produce a positive cash flow, all of it should be used to pay down the debt. Lately, Trump has specifically been promising a $2,000 tariff rebate check to Americans. Not sure where that number comes from. Further, I think any distribution should wait until after SCOTUS decides if Trump even has the power to negotiate tariffs in the first place. In the meantime, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has now chimed in to say that there will likely be an income limit. He has suggested that families making over $100,000 will be excluded. Of course, this is on top of other tax giveaways like no tax on tips and overtime. In other words, not thrilled with it and even less thrilled with it given the latest adjustments.
All rise.
Our series Interviews for Saving America establishes that the world is full of interesting people. Once you hear from our next guest, I am sure that you will agree that he deserves the moniker of interesting person. Saving America welcomes Tony Allman, who is the Regional Retail Center Manager for Primeway Federal Credit Union, where he has served with purpose and passion for over 20 years here in Houston, Texas. Tony oversees branch operations, business development, and community engagement, ensuring that every member experiences reflect Primeway's commitment to service excellence. With a career in financial services spanning back to 1985, Tony has established a reputation for developing strong teams and fostering meaningful relationships with members. His leadership philosophy centers on helping individuals and communities thrive through financial empowerment and genuine connection. Beyond his work at Primeway, Tony is deeply involved with the Greater Heights Area Chamber of Commerce, where he has been a member for over 20 years and is now chairman of the board for the year 25-26. Now, it's a position that he has previously held and for some reason agreed to do it again. Tony attended the University of Houston, where he studied business administration. Outside of work, he's been married for 34 years, devoted father of 4, and a proud papa of 3 grandchildren, a title he considers his favorite role of all. In the interest of full disclosure, I've banked with Primeway Federal Credit Union since 2012 and proudly serve on the board of the Heights Chamber with him. We welcome Tony Allman for his first appearance on Saving America.
Thank you for inviting me on, David.
Well, we're delighted to have you. As you know, we asked 3 questions of our guests, 3 basic questions. Americans work hard for their money. Recently, we've seen some headline news about people losing their life savings in scams. How bad is that situation?
Well, David, I wish I could come on and talk about a much happier, fun subject, but it's bad and it's getting worse every year. According to the FBI, in 2024, Americans aged 60 and older reported losing $4.9 billion in scams. That's an increase of over 40% from the year before. Older adults filed over 147,000 complaints with an average loss per victim of approximately $83,000. And those are just cases that get reported. You know, the Federal Trade Commission estimates that the total consumer fraud losses reached $12.5 billion in 2024, and that's a 25% increase over 2023. And they agree the numbers are probably even higher because many victims never actually report what happened, often out of embarrassment or fear. And so we're talking billions of dollars that are lost every year to our beloved seniors. And, you know, it is sad.
Well, it's certainly a stunning situation. One, you know, obviously, what we invited you to talk about that topic today, and it is interesting because it is so hard to avoid. I was personally, and I think I'm pretty sharp. Recently scammed somebody in an online purchase, compromised my credit card, and got hit for $100. Not a horrible amount. And because it was on a credit card, I was able to get with credit card fraud people and they were able to reverse it. But one of the things that I share with my students and talk about is many people do not actually read their monthly credit card bill to look for fraud. In my case, the reason I found out about it is I went into the bill and I saw these two bogus charges. I contacted fraud. Now, it's not easy. It takes some administration, but it was real interesting to see just get it resolved. So what does a typical scam look like, and why do so many seniors get tricked into these scams?
Well, David, most scams today begin in the same way. It's either a phone call, an email, a text message that appears and sounds legitimate. The scammer, of course, creates a sense of urgency or fear to prompt the person to act without really thinking the whole thing through. So one of the biggest trends is for a scammer to call. And of course, you look at your phone and the caller ID says, XYZ bank or XYZ credit card company. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's really your bank or credit card company. And they might say something like, we've detected suspicious activity on your account. And in order to protect you, we need you to do this, this, and this. The problem is that this, and this is you giving up information that you should not be giving up because your real bank or your real credit card company should not be asking you a lot of personal information just to verify if a transaction is fraudulent. And one of the things they're really trying to get after is the reset password to like your online banking or something that they can really use against you. Or they may call and pretend to be the IRS or the Social Security Administration and trick you into giving up this information. And they're going to pressure you, and they're going to use fear. The police are going to be there, or some sort of fear tactic to trick you into not really thinking through the whole process.
Well, it's clean, and I can understand that. And do you think some of that with seniors is that there's a bit of isolation, that they're not in the workplace, they're not, in contact with their bankers and other people on a regular basis to know who's who?
That's definitely the case. It's also a case that seniors grew up in a time where you could, trust people. They grew up in a time where you could leave your front door unlocked, those sorts of things. If your phone rings, the caller IDs, was really who it really was. So it was a different time, and yes, the isolation and is definitely an issue.
Yeah, and of course also with remote banking and stuff like that, people were used to coming into their bank and or credit union, and they don't do as much of that, and so they lose that personal connection. So it is pretty interesting.
They also don't necessarily tend to be the most digitally savvy per se. Sometimes they are, but sometimes the digital world is not their expertise, so they can get used to manipulate them.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting situation. Can you give our audience a roadmap for how they can ensure they're never a victim of such scams? What's the kind of 1, 2, 3, 4 of handling these situations?
Sure, David. So I like to break it down into 3 parts: prevention, detection, and response. First, prevention. Never trust an unexpected call, text, or email that demands quick action. Legitimate banks or credit unions or government agencies will never ask you to move money to protect it. They will not request remote access to your computer. They will not ask for payment in gift cards or cryptocurrency, or ask you to run down to Walmart and get a money order, or run down to your bank and get cash. If the call is from somebody claiming to be your financial institution, our advice is that you disconnect the call, and that you call your institution or your credit card company with a number that you got from a reliable source. That could be your statement or the number that you would normally call them on, and then let verify the situation that way, as opposed to just somebody randomly calling you. This simple step actually can stop a lot of fraud before it starts. Additionally, keep your devices updated. Use strong passwords. ABC 123 is not really going to cut it these days. And if you have the ability to enable your two-factor authentication on whatever mobile app or website or banking software that you're using, you should definitely do that. And then back to the part we talked about with isolation is talk to your friends and your family. Have somebody that you trust that you can kind of bounce these things off of before making significant financial moves and giving away your financial information. Detection. Be alert. Anything that feels rushed, they're going to try to rush you. Use fear, use emotion. Take a step back. Don't be afraid to disconnect the call and call your actual financial institution with a number or that you trust. Scammers will tell you things like, "Don't tell anybody about this. Your account could be frozen. You got to act right now." Legitimate institutions will not pressure you that way. They're going to want to make you feel comfortable, not pressured and stressed. And they're going to be okay if you want to disconnect the call and call a number that you trust. Finally, respond. If you suspect that you've been targeted in any way by a scammer, contact your bank or your credit union or your credit card company and report it. Because the faster that you report it, the better your chances of recovering your funds or blocking further transactions. And then lastly, you can file a report with the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center or the Federal Trade Commission at ftc.gov. Those are my recommendations, Dave.
Sounds like a great list, and part of it is that as you started with that, prevention is the key. Is just playing a little heads up ball, and there's just an amazing number of scams out there. There's the scam where people call, and it's gotten worse because I'm hearing that they're using AI and they'll record somebody's voice, and then it's actually that person sounds so much like that person's voice, and it's Bobby calling your grandson Bobby calling from California, and he needs you to wire some money to him, and that scam has gotten more sophisticated with AI. And then one of the things that I had recently, which is bizarre, and I talked to some friends and several of them did, is they got a call saying that they had not shown up for jury duty and there was an arrest warrant out for them, and they needed to hurry up and go and get cash and bring it to them, and they wanted me to do something. And it was interesting because I'm an attorney and I'm also very familiar with the court system, and they actually identified a judge. So I put the guy on hold, which I'm sure he was excited about, called the court, and they said, you're not scheduled for anything today. We know you're a member of the court system, but we have no idea what you're talking about. In the meantime, he had hung up on the while I had him on hold, and a different person using a different fake number called in and tried to keep the scam going, and all that. So we recorded the numbers and passed them along to the FBI. But again, apparently it's not that hard to generate fake ID numbers on your phones. So it's getting more difficult out there. But I hope our audience today has benefited from this, and that they'll think first and take action after doing a lot of investigation.
Absolutely.
Tony Allman, it's been a delight working with you at Primary Federal Credit Union. How can people get more information about you and things like this?
They can go to our website at primewayfcu.com, or they can reach out to us. Basically, our website would be the easiest way to reach out to us. They can give me a call, 713-799-6633.
Please proceed.
Trump may sue the BBC for billions. Trump is one of the more litigious people running around. This latest tiff is no exception. The BBC, for some unexplained reason, took Trump's January 6, 2021 speech, chopped it up, and ran a damaging clip. Nobody disputes that. However, two key BBC people resigned over the mess, and there's been an apology. Trump plans to sue the BBC for $5 billion in damages. He is still president and he can't run again. So what are his damages? It causes me heartburn when the U.S. fusses with one of our close allies. There are smarter ways to resolve this issue, and I hope it goes in that direction. He is doing this while calling China and Russia's leaders smart guys, his friends. Let's tell the truth about those two murderers and let our allies work with us, not against us.
How does the defendant plead?
Unleash Prosperity confirms that New York City and New Jersey are bleeding big time. The think tank Unleash Prosperity has released a report that I'm pretty sure surprises few in my audience. The exodus of hardworking, higher wage earners from high-tax New York City and nearby New Jersey is serious and is resulting in major wealth transfers from blue areas to so-called red areas in the United States. And I'm surprised that when consumers supposedly are worried about the cost of living, they voted for candidates who will likely raise taxes and the cost of living, not lower it. That is why I question the proffered reason for the November 4th election results. The folks voting for these clowns are hardcore Dems or illegals voting to keep who they think will continue their handouts. In contrast, many Republican and independent voters sat out the election figuring their votes wouldn't make a difference. And that's a problem, folks. I encourage people to vote, vote, vote. Vote in the primary, vote in the runoffs, vote in the regular elections. Get out there and be part of America and creating the better democracy for the future.
Please raise your right hand.
New research on a serious disease, lupus. I've been aware for a long time about the serious health consequences of the disease lupus. That is because I had close friends who were diagnosed with the disease and after very tough struggles passed away well before their time. A new study has indicated that the very common Epstein-Barr virus may be tied to lupus. It is estimated that 95% of the population experiences it at some point. Lupus is an autoimmune disease which presently does not have a cure. Symptoms include fatigue, joint pain, and rashes. Of course, any autoimmune disease makes the carrier more exposed to other diseases. The Lupus Foundation of America estimates that 1.5 million people in the United States and 5 million women of childbearing age, but men, children, and seniors may also develop lupus. Other facts about lupus: 1 in 2,000 people are diagnosed with lupus. 9 out of 10 cases occur in women. 16,000 new cases of lupus are reported each year. Lupus nephritis, kidney disease caused by lupus, is the most common severe complication. 65% of people with lupus list chronic pain as their most difficult symptom. 1 in 3 people with lupus also have other autoimmune diseases. So the significance of the study is that if the medical researchers can tie it to a cause, they can then work on solutions. And I certainly hope that'll happen and happen soon. We have some very exciting medical developments coming, and they can't get here too soon as far as I'm concerned.
Objection, Your Honor.
My regular listeners know that I am a huge proponent of mandatory term limits for all public officials, and certainly in Washington. In fact, my book, Bad Deal for America, is a specific pitch for term limits. America's Congress is cursed with the biggest collection of losers and liars imaginable. Worse, due to the power of the incumbency, they stay forever getting rich but ignoring their overtaxed and underserved constituents. I apply this to both political parties, not just the alleged liberals. Classic examples include Demented Joe continue to hold office even though he could not conduct a conversation. He was there for 50 years. Then Mitch McConnell can't walk stairs but still pretends to represent his taxpayers. Of course, there's Nancy Pelosi, Miss Insider Trading herself, as I label her. Then the grand faker Bernie the Bum, who's worth millions and has 3 houses, pretending to be a commie. He is on a speaking tour to promote extreme left positions. Will he surrender some of his unearned salary back to his impoverished taxpayers? Hey, a bit of good news. Totally useless Dick Durbin, senator from Illinois, who sucked up taxpayer dollars for 44 years and accomplished nothing other than re-election, has announced he will not run again. The sad note on this is that, based on what I know about politics in Illinois, he will likely be replaced with another useless Democrat. Our series of interviews for Saving America establishes that the world is full of interesting people. Once you hear from our next guest, I'm sure that you will agree that she deserves the moniker of interesting person. Saving America welcomes Kim Lingling, who is a prolific author who shares her love of nature, animals, living with PTSD, and her mission of tossing nuggets of hope. She is the lead author and coordinator of a collaborative 3-book series titled When Grace Found Me, and 2 standalone anthologies, When Hope Found Me, released November 2022, and Paw Prints on the Couch, released August of 2023. In addition to writing, she hosts the podcast Let Fear Bounce, spotlighting people who make a positive difference in the world, whether by writing, film production, philanthropy, teaching, founding nonprofits, and more. You can regularly find Kim drinking copious amounts of coffee and taking long walks with her dog, Dexter, who is also her official office manager. Today, she is joining us to discuss her new book, Nuggets of Hope. We welcome Kim Lingling for her first appearance on Saving America.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this.
Well, great. Well, we're looking forward to chatting with you. And as you know, we ask our guests 3 questions, and your bio mentions dealing with PTSD. This challenge has been in the public eye a lot, probably the last 20 years, especially due to the Mideast wars. What has been your path to recovery?
My path to recovery, it's been a bumpy one, and I think it probably is for most folks that live with PTSD. And that could be, veterans or anyone who's went through a traumatic experience can experience it. But for about 15 years, I kind of stuffed it down. Kept telling myself, I'm fine. I'm all right. I'm a veteran. I can deal with this. Pull up your big girl panties, Kim. You're fine. Quit being a baby. That's in my head. All that, that negative self-talk that we give ourselves, and I did that for about 15 years. And so I thought I was doing pretty good, until I wasn't. And it was just life came at me in all kinds of ways. I experienced my grandmother passed away. I was going through a divorce. A dear friend of mine committed suicide. And all of this stuff it just felt like it was just, kicks to the gut. And then all that stress and all that grief and torment was bringing up all kinds of stuff from the 15 years prior. And it was just a swirly mess in my head. I didn't know what was going on with me. I was like, oh gosh, there's something wrong. I think I'm going crazy. Am I going crazy? And I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, was losing all kinds of weight. And friends of mine in the veteran post that I'm a member of, they happen to be combat Vietnam vets. And they're about 20 years older than me. And a few of them noticed a difference in me, that shift. And they said, and they always called me kid. They said, kid, we don't know what's causing everything that you're going through right now or what your issues are, but we recognize them. And if you don't get yourself to the VA, we're going to drag you kicking and screaming. And I did not answer them in a nice way. It was like,
big surprise.
I was like, I'm fine. Leave me bleep, bleep, bleep alone, and they said, now, if you don't go, we will take you. And they did take me.
They literally kidnapped you and hauled you over to the VA hospital. Okay.
And I was angry. I was super angry. And at that time, and this is quite a while ago, I'm aging myself, but this was quite a while ago. At that time, there were nothing. There were no programs, no counselors, nothing in place for female veterans. And I had experienced sexual assault by 2 individuals. There were no female counselors. They didn't know what to do with me. And the counselor, a gentleman, of course, and he happened to be a Vietnam vet as well. When I was in his office with him that first night, he just said, because I had told myself, I told him, I'm not sharing anything with you. I was made to come here. He goes, that's fine. We can sit here and stare at each other for 45 minutes if you want. I went, fine, good, we will. And we did. We did. We stared at each other for 45 minutes. But he was very honest and said, we don't know what to do with you. We don't have anything in place for you. He goes, so we're going to be learning together how to get you feeling better, because that's the goal. And I will always appreciate him being so honest. And I kept going back. The guys kept taking me back. And then I started going on my own. And it was a very slow, very bumpy, very, very hard process. But once I started gathering some tools in my tool belt, that's what I like to say, it was easier to recognize certain things that might cause me to seize up in a panic attack. Or because I suffered from pretty decent anxiety, and I would hyperventilate, or I would just freeze. I'd be in Walmart and I couldn't move. It was not a fun place to be. And gathering those tools on my journey, I was able to utilize them and recognize certain things that might trigger me or whatever. I could recognize them now before they come and before it hits me hard. And I'll be like, all right, Kim, deep breath. We got this. We can do this. You're in a safe place. You're okay. Look around you. You're fine. So there's certain things that, certain little tools that I still carry with me to this day, because it could be a song, it could be a smell that all of a sudden just makes me go, literally takes my breath away for a minute or two.
Now, did you ever, did they give you anti-anxiety meds to help deal with this?
I fought that.
Mm-hmm.
Surprise.
Good. Yeah.
And I refused that for a long time, but it did get to a point where I was becoming so unhealthy physically. Because thankfully, I was not one that turned to drinking or drugs, anything like that.
Yeah.
I was just stubbornly fighting it on my own, But then there was a time I went to my doctor, my regular doctor, in a full-blown panic attack, and it was just not stopping. It wouldn't stop. And he said, Kim, we have to do this now. And I'll never forget this with him. He said, you are trying so hard to climb this mountain, but it doesn't have to be a mountain. He goes, I will give you the smallest dosage, and we will start you off at 3 months, and we'll just go and see how it works for you. He goes, but those mountains will become molehills. So instead of trying to climb, you'll be able to step over. And I've never forgotten that. And so I did take an anti-anxiety for about 6 months. And that was years and years ago. And I would say over the last 25 years, I've done that 3 separate occasions for 6 months at a time. And because my body does not react well to any type of medication.
Sure.
I experience all the side effects. I'm super, super sensitive. So that's why it's like, building up my tool belt the best that I can.
Right.
And because I felt like that was a weakness to have to take a pill, even though it was only, it was like 10 milligrams. It was the lowest ever. But it did make the mountains turn into molehills, so I could step over them instead of struggling to climb.
Right. Now, did you ever get a female counselor?
I did, but it took about 13 years.
Oh my goodness. And were you meeting with a psychiatrist or a psychologist?
A psychologist. And then some just, what are they? I can't remember the letters. Counselors, not a psychologist or a
social workers.
Not a social worker either. Yes. Yes, you're right. But
Yes,
there's
the
extra
counselor,
letters that they
certified
add on.
counselor. Yes, I know there's
Yeah.
a couple, lots of other alphabet soup like
Yes,
that.
that's a lot of letters. And they've added to them. So there was a couple ladies, because one moved on. I was with her for a while, and then she moved on to another position. But yeah, it took a long time. Now, now there are things in place. There's programs in place specifically for women, for female
Good,
veterans,
good.
and there's all kinds of things that the VA provides, which is awesome. But I was kind of what did my one counselor, the gentleman that I first saw, he said, we're going to have to blaze a trail with you. And I remember clearly saying, I don't want to be a trailblazer. I just want to feel better.
Well,
You
part
know?
of feeling better, of course, is people interacting with kindness. And so, how do you define kindness, and why is it so important in our lives?
Oh my goodness. If people were kinder to each other, the world would be such a better place.
You think?
Kindness to me, it would, truly. Kindness to me is being able to see people for who they are and meet them right where they're at without judgment. If you notice someone hurting, acknowledge that. You might not be able to help them, but you can at least acknowledge, I'm so sorry that you're in this spot right now, or I'm so sorry that you're hurting. Is there somewhere you can go for help? And if you know a resource or a phone number or whatever, provide that. Being kind just can change someone's life in an instant. A smile at a stranger that you're passing on the street, because none of us know what someone's going through.
That's true.
My life right now could be a complete shambles, and you would never know. Yours could be a complete shambles. How would I know that? So why not be kind? That's my question. Why wouldn't someone want to be kind? Gosh, it doesn't cost you a dime.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, certainly part of sometimes we turn on kindness rather than practicing it all the time, don't we? In other words, if we see somebody who's visibly suffering, and there are people, the cliche, they wear it on their sleeve, you feel like you need to reach out. And we all do that differently. I use words. I'm a talker. I'm also adverse to touching. So I'm not going to go hug people. I'm going to talk with them and modulate my voice and stuff like that. But I think you make a wonderful point. How about people who bear it well, like you did for years and years and years, carrying that inside you? And if people said, oh, well, I'm not going to be kind to Kim because she doesn't need it today, they don't really know, because a lot of us, there are people out there who are, I'm sorry, we often use the term drama queens, and that can be male or female, obviously.
Right.
And I have a relative in my family who's a drama queen, and it doesn't mean that they need all the kindness in the world. And sometimes you meet a person who's like, darn, that person really has their act together, and behind the scenes they're dealing with some really tough stuff in life.
I have found that those people that are the kindest have been through or are dealing with their own trauma. Those ones that reach out and help, that are the helpers, are ones who recognize it in others because they've been through hell and back. Maybe they're in it right now. That's why hold the door for a stranger, offer to carry someone's groceries to their car, smile at a stranger, compliment a stranger. I started doing that a lot outside of handing out my little nuggets of hope that I have. I physically hand these out to people, strangers. So, I probably look like a creeper or a stalker, but hey, I have hope.
Well, you probably get a little bit of leeway being female, because we are a society that's accustomed to the women being the moms and being maternal to people and all that. And I wanted to bridge into our third question, which is, what are some practical tips for integrating kindness into our lives? You just mentioned one. You have, and for we do this in webcast and podcast, so there are people who are listening who can't see. But Kim held up a little. Is it a rock?
It's a polished stone, just a small one. You
Okay.
can carry it in your pocket. Polished. I don't know. I might be aging myself, but older gentlemen, like my grandfather's age, used to carry stones in their pocket, and they call them worry stones.
Yes, I've
Carry them
seen
and
that.
just, rub them with their fingers and stuff. So this is a small polished stone with the word hope engraved in it. And
Cool.
so yeah, I started doing that a couple, 2.5 years ago. And that's part of how the book Nuggets of Hope came about. I share some of my interactions that I've had with people that receive those nuggets. But back to your question, I mean, just simple little things. Just like I was saying, smile at a stranger, compliment a stranger. I saw 3 older ladies in Walmart one day, and they were just giggling. They had to have been in their mid to late 70s, and they were just giggling up a storm. And as soon as I heard them, I started smiling. And then when I came around the corner and saw them, they all had big purple hats on, and they were just laughing and giggling. And I'm like, they are having a blast. And when I finally got up to them, because I'm like, I got to go say hi to these ladies. So I walked up to them and I said, "Excuse me, ladies, but I have got to tell you, your hats are fabulous." And they just started laughing. They're like, "Oh, thank you." And they're preening, playing around, just being sarcastic, fun in a fun way with their hats. But they made my day. They absolutely made my day. And I wasn't in the best mood that day. I wasn't having the greatest day. And I heard their laughter first. So you don't know what what you're doing at the time, how that might be affecting total strangers that are around you or that might see you. If you're walking in the park or something and you see someone with a puppy or a dog or pushing a stroller with a baby in, and it just makes your heart go, "Oh," at least it does for mine. And that takes you out of your own muck. Because I'm always saying I got stuck in my muck, and it's like, pull yourself out, Kim. Come on. There's always something to be grateful for. I guess that's the other thing I want to say. There's always something to be grateful for. And it doesn't matter what it is. Sometimes I might wake up because I had a horrible night. I had nightmares all night long. And I wake up and I'm so tired. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to make it through this day? I'm so tired. I'm not going to be able to get any work done. Then I remind myself, Kim, quit it. Quit whining. You got a lot to be grateful for, including this cup of coffee.
I knew
That
you
might
were going to
be,
say that. Just have more. If you had a bad night, have more coffee during the daytime.
yeah.
Now,
But I mean,
what's your
that's
answer
just,
for me, though?
to be grateful. That might be the one thing you're grateful for that day, but you're grateful for something, and it's taken your mind out of the muck, you know?
True. Well, the problem is, in my case, I had to switch to decaf coffee about 1990. So that's a long time ago,
That is a
because I would wake up and, like a normal person, have a regular cup of coffee, and then I would vibrate the cup off the table. And
Oh.
it just had a dramatic reaction. I about 5 years ago, I got to switch around. So I now do decaf in the morning and decaf at night because I like the taste of coffee. I grew up with coffee. But then at lunchtime, after lunch, I have 1 cup of regular coffee. So I get one thing. I'm going to a 3.5 hour opera next week, from I think 7:30 to 10:30. Well, actually, it'll go to 11. And I'm going to go ahead and have a cup of regular coffee right before I go into the
right
opera,
before you go.
so I can sort of stay awake for that. It's Tannhauser, which is one of Wagner's shorter operas.
One of the shorter ones, yes.
Oh yes, he's done some 5 hour. I've caught a couple 5 hour operas, and in those cases, I just bring a pillow. Yeah.
I've never been to an opera. I've not ever been to one.
Well,
Although I do like listening. I like listening to Pavarotti every once in a while.
sure, he's fabulous, and of course
Oh,
he's I think he's retiring or retired now, but he was widely regarded as one of the best opera singers of
yeah.
this most recent generation. And I'll tell you how I started because it's I think it's informative. I started with Gilbert and Sullivan, which as someone with a great sense of humor like you have, the Gilbert and Sullivan, part of the trick with Gilbert and Sullivan that people don't realize is it's political commentary of the 1880s. They are making fun of the crown. They are making fun of royal society. And if you realize what they're doing sarcastically, if you will, that's an American term, not the English, you can really see, oh, I see what he's doing. He's pretending to be a caricature of the king, but of course you couldn't do that in 1880s.
Right.
But you could write a comical opera and have someone that you don't call king, but acts a lot like it. But it was interesting because I saw an opera just a few weeks ago that I had not seen before, Rossini opera, and it was a lay-down comedy. I mean, they had a pie in the face. They pulled a wig off a guy. I mean, all sorts of stuff. I had never seen an opera like that, but that was around 70 years before Gilbert and Sullivan. So I think what happened is that you could see the lines from that to Gilbert and Sullivan, that they definitely knew what they were doing. And maybe also let people know there are a few lawyers out there with a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Because they were barristers, and as well as musical people. At least the one who did the lyrics was a barrister. I don't know if the one who did the music was. But anyway, that'll get you started. Kim, we always try and be respectful of our guests and give them you keep it short. The other thing that we always say is we keep it short because we want our audience to actually listen to it, because we're not going to give them the book. What we want them to do is to say, wow, Kim Langling, what an interesting person. I think I will look her up and get her book, Nuggets of Hope. And for our audience, how do they get more information about you and your book?
Easiest place is just go to my website, which is my name, kimlanglingauthor.com. There you can find my books. You can find the episodes to my podcast, Let Fear Bounce. You can see what I'm doing, what I'm up to. If you want to contact me, go ahead and scroll to the bottom and you can hit that contact button. That's where Dexter comes in. He will get all those emails and scan them for me and let me know who's reaching out and what they need. So yeah, Dexter, my office manager, my trusty office manager, will take care of all that. But yeah, would love to hear from you. All my books are available on Amazon, just under my name, Kim Langling. And again, my website is kimlanglingauthor.com.
Sustained.
Putin sticks his finger in Trump's eye. On the good news, bad news front, things are worse in Ukraine. Putin has launched multiple missiles and drones against civilian targets in Ukraine. And I emphasize, civilian targets. In just one such attack, at least a dozen civilians are dead and dozens more injured. This is despite Putin claiming that he wants to reach a deal. Trump has finally turned up the sanctions, but much more needs to be done. This is simply murder by Putin, nothing less. In an odd twist, Zelensky met with Trump privately while both were attending the late Pope Francis's funeral in Rome. Rumors are that this was prearranged. The deal for much more American help in turn for America's access to rare earth minerals is now being fast-tracked.
Motion denied.
Student loan collections are rolling. For the record, student loans enabled me to get through college in my first graduate degree. I appreciated the help and paid every penny back early. In the next generation, my children were able to attend college with my support and student loans. Now, one of my kids is a public high school teacher and is getting some reduction in loans due to the programs in place. After a break due to COVID that was far too long, as the Biden-Harris administration tried to buy votes of current and former college students, it's time to start paying. Despite the well-announced start to payments, an amazing only 38% of borrowers, just over 1/3, are current on their loans. 5 million are in default. The break here again is for the long-suffering taxpayers. It's been too long. Remember that the feds have the power to grab tax returns, etc. They are not your routine collection agency. Persons who are having payment issues should immediately contact the representatives of the different payment systems and work something out. Do not ignore this important responsibility. My take on this is that nobody is entitled to a college education. That is a choice that individuals make. That includes what student studies. Many of those students are struggling financially, selected majors that either do not translate easily into a paying job, such as philosophy, or require years of additional study to monetize, like psychology. The taxpayers did not make that choice for these students. On the positive side, many more students are moving toward business and STEM degrees. That is a plus for the marketplace and for the competitiveness of the United States.
The defense rests, Your Honor.
The pink granite coast, Paris, Girac. Hey, Patriots, the rugged beauty of France's pink granite coast might seem serene today, but during World War II, this stunning landscape bore witness to the harsh realities of global concept and the sacrifices made by American servicemen in the fight against tyranny. As Hitler's Wehrmacht occupied France, they transformed picturesque coastlines like this into formidable defenses, the infamous Atlantic Wall. Stretching for thousands of miles, this network of bunkers, gun emplacements, and obstacles was designed to repel any Allied invasion. For the American soldiers tasked with liberating Europe, this meant facing heavily fortified positions along every inch of occupied territory. While the major D-Day landings focused on Normandy further east, the American commitment to liberating France extended to every corner of the occupied nation. American air power played a crucial role in bombing strategic targets along the Atlantic Wall, including those potentially built into or overlooking the unique terrain of the pink granite coast. These bombing raids, often carried out by brave American airmen, aimed to weaken German defenses and pave the way for eventual Allied ground forces. Furthermore, as the Allied forces pushed inland after the Normandy landings, American units were involved in the broader liberation of Brittany. While direct large-scale battles might not have raged on the pink granite coast itself, the region was undoubtedly part of the occupied territory that American soldiers fought to liberate. The local French resistance, often supported by Allied intelligence and supplies, would have operated in this area, and American forces played a vital role in securing Brittany and cutting off Germany's access to various ports. The sacrifices made by the American GIs across France, including in regions like Brittany, were immense. They fought to restore freedom and self-determination to a nation under the heel of Nazi oppression. Their actions were driven by deep-seated belief in liberty and the understanding that the fight against tyranny was a moral imperative. This commitment to freedom and the willingness to stand against aggression are core tenets of American conservatism and continue to shape our role in the world today. The serene beauty of the pink granite coast today stands in stark contrast to the violence of the war it once witnessed. It serves as a quiet reminder of the sacrifices made by our American heroes who crossed an ocean to fight for freedom and liberate a continent. Their bravery and dedication to the causes of liberty are a testament to the enduring spirit of American patriotism.
This session is adjourned.
Thanks for joining me for Saving America. If you have questions or comments, please find me on various social media sites. I'm Dr. David D. Schein, and I will see you next week.
Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.